Hello everyone. So we decided to split this web presentation in two parts. The first part will give business level overview of what do we mean by applications, how we see them being positioned, why we see it as such a big deal. And then second one will be more of a technical presentation on how exactly would you implement those applications with KuberDoc. So let's start. And first of all, if you think about it, we have two different concepts. One concept is platform as a service. That's where you present things, give your customers things like MySQL, ElasticSearch, Redis database, something they need to run their applications. And then there is a software as a service side where you provide WordPress, Joomla, shopping cart, CRM, anything like that. And while from KuberDoc perspective, it might seem fairly the same, from your perspective, from marketing perspective, from positioning perspective, it might be quite different. At the same time, you might find yourself that you're offering a mix of infrastructure products, like platform products like database or Tomcat, and fully blown applications like Redis database, like Redmine or WordPress. And this is kind of normal, and it goes back into the times of ASP, if you remember, or if you've been in this business long enough. Before SaaS, PaaS, and all those longer acronyms, there was application service providers that, in my opinion, failed. They never reached what they promised to reach. But they did create a market, they did create some understanding of what kind of ASP markets there are. And there is quite a few of them that I believe will now happen again. And I believe that's part of the opportunity of the marketplace today and where KuberDoc will help you excel. So, of course, there is a specialist ASP. They often come out from independent software vendors. Imagine you have your own application and you want to sell it as a service. That's your specialist ASP in a pure form. Huge example of that would be Atlassian with their product Jira, that first they sold as a software that you would have to download and install. Now you can consume it on their cloud. Of course, it's not the only way to do it. There is a huge number of WordPress specialist ASPs. They do nothing but WordPress, or those that do nothing but Joomla. But typically, either application has to be extremely popular, or you have to be the one who develops the application to be that specialist ASP. The second niche is vertical markets. That's a little bit different, but for example, if most of your customers are in medical industry, you understand their needs well, etc., you can expand fairly well by simply starting to see what kind of applications they need and running for them those applications in cloud. It would simplify the deployment of those applications for those medical industry professionals. It will increase revenues for you. It's a new channel, it's a new product, it's a new revenue from existing customers, and it has a huge potential. This can be done in partnership with software vendors. So if you know a software vendor who's very active in your vertical, you can go to them, make a partnership, and be the hosted provider of that software. What we do, what KuberDoc provides you with, is an easy way to do that. Enterprise ASP, similar somewhat to a vertical, but you just look at enterprise as a one giant vertical and provides software that is needed by majority of medium, large, small businesses, etc. And of course, there is local ASPs, those that been there before, that's how hosting usually started a long time ago, where you would serve your city, find businesses that need to go online. I'm pretty sure some of the hosting companies still have those routes. It's even more powerful with applications because you can repeat this model, but on the application level, you know what businesses in your neighborhood need, and you can do that. But all of those were fairly old business models as they existed. What KuberDoc does, it makes it simpler to do it for existing hosters. But the new model is marketplace ASP. So with KuberDoc, with like Bitnami, Docker Hub, instead of selling just 1, 5, or 10 applications, you can actually offer hundreds or thousands of applications across the board. The difference between marketplace ASP is and all the rest is that it doesn't have to be managed support. With all others, you do have to invest in training your staff and knowing so that they can support the customers on those applications. With the marketplace ASP, there is no such requirement. Customers will not expect that you will support all the applications that are listed in your marketplace. It's also much wider appeal. You can target any customer, whoever needs the application will get it. But on the other hand, what it creates more of a commodity place because you'll be competing on price level, on resource level, etc., etc. So it's an opportunity that doesn't exist today, and I'm sure a lot of companies will offer it rather soon in this form, but it will be very competitive on pricing level, on resource level. The good thing is that after we talked with Bitnami and Docker, they're both planning to offer a large number of applications through their catalogs. So Bitnami is now working on their catalog. From what I understand, Docker told us that they're working on certified hub, where the applications images will be certified, secure, maintained, etc. So there will be collections, multiple collections of those Docker images, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more of those collections. We're not planning to do collection of images, but what we're planning to do is what we call YAML files, as descriptor files that take multiple images and actually create the sellable applications out of them. And when we launch, we plan to have about 20 images, 20 applications ready that you can just take and start selling right away out of the door without any delays. And probably we will have more as time goes because it's fairly simple to develop those. And that's the idea behind KuberDoc, is that it allows you to start selling applications very fast. It removes this long process of how to sell large quantity of an application. So today, if you want to sell, say, OpenCRM or was it Sugar CRM? Sugar CRM. If you want to sell Sugar CRM, how do you do it? You can sell it as a basic shared hosting and install your Sugar CRM. Yes, you can. But if you actually want to do a platform for selling Sugar CRM, it's not that easy. It requires a lot of steps. How do you do the infrastructure? How do you do backups? How do you do resource isolations? How do you drive the customer so that he is not boggled by all the choices given by shared hosting? Oh, I mean, it's not simple, it's not clear, and it creates a lot of sales, development, and management issues, and usually it takes 6 to 12 months for people to launch an applications. And that's including, of course, marketing and sales, but just operational size is at least, or usually within 6 months time period. We want to minimize it and say no, usually it should be a day, maybe a week, but no more than a week for application that has Docker images. And if the application doesn't have Docker images, well, maybe then it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 weeks. But the idea is that everything is there so you can start right away and do it right away. So why sell software as a service instead of VPS? First of all, your infrastructure costs will be lower. So if you sell the same applications in form of VPS versus software as a service, if your costs are lower, your profit margins are higher. Second part, support and maintenance is much simpler with a SaaS platform powered by KuberDoc. Upgrades are easier, security is much easier to maintain, etc., etc. And you get that all while maintaining high resource isolations. You still secure, one customer cannot see other customers, all resources are limited, etc., etc. It's basically a VPS, container VPS, but still a VPS, just that in very much tuned to be all about a single application. And from end customer perspective, SaaS is also better than just VPS because it's much easier to use. There is no VPS management per se. It's much easier to maintain. And while it's much less flexible because it's only that application, it's nothing else but that application, it really doesn't matter at all, because if they need another application, they just run it as another application. It might make a difference for you from the perspective, do I want to go as a marketplace SaaS and offer huge number of applications, or do I want to specialize? But from the customer perspective, it's still easier to run software as a service versus installing individual software components into VPS. And that's what makes software as a service much easier for your typical customer to jump into versus VPS. It's easier to manage, deploy, it has lower total cost of ownership. It's more like shared hosting, so it requires much lower technical knowledge from the customers. Yet it's has much better security, upgrade, maintenance scenarios than VPS has. There is no this high technical knowledge that required when you're running software as a service. And another thing why you want to sell applications, and that was very interesting, it's taken from the Odin SMB Cloud Insights report from this year. So if you look at the marketplace, infrastructure as a service, your typical VPS market will grow about 14%. Web presence, meaning shared hosting and similar things, will still grow about the same, while application hosting will grow 25%, much more than almost 26%, much more than any other growth sectors for service providers today. And what we're trying to do is remove technology as a barrier for enabling you to be to provide application as a service. We wanted to make it extremely simple, extremely low footprint thing to start hosting applications. And it starts with a very low, even from system requirements, very low footprint. We require just 2 nodes, 2 cores each, and we don't even require central storage to start. So it would be nice to have from the persistence, reliability, etc. perspective. Any questions? So we got the first question. When Rails first became popular, many of us thought the new cloud-based applications would take over the world. It never happened. Why are containers different? Well, Rails didn't solve the problem of actually hosting those applications. Actually, I would say that Rails are one of the toughest thing to host, probably somewhere next to Java. That was very difficult to actually deploy, maintain, and that's why it wasn't such a big hit. And the containers and not just containers, Docker containers are different is because even Rails and Java are very simple to host in Docker containers. So it's basically an enablement. Imagine you wrote the applications, but now you need to host it for 2,000 companies. With Rails or Java, it's a nightmare. It's really a nightmare, and you'll spend most of your times actually maintaining the infrastructure. With Docker containers, it's no longer the case. With KuberDoc, bringing up those applications to be sold in forms of Docker containers should be extremely simple. So that's why it wasn't about the language in which the applications are written. There was always a bunch of languages. It was about the scalable infrastructure that was very difficult to accomplish. I have another question: how to compete with Amazon and Heroku and with other big companies. So how does it help you to compete with those companies? First of all, you're competing on the level of individual application, which always makes it much easier. Those companies cannot compete on that level, and you can specialize. Second thing is that, for example, if you look at yourself as PaaS, of course, it's very hard to compete with Amazon. But on the other hand, you already have fairly large customer base, and you can look at PaaS platform as a way that you would be offering through KuberDoc, as a way to upsell more to existing customer base, generate more revenue per customer, versus just strictly competing with Amazon for a new business. Is KuberDoc an alternative to Plesk automation for shared hosting? No, it's not. So we will actually play along and be part of Plesk automation. It's not a shared hosting. It's a way to do Docker hosting in more detail. So right now we're exploring the side of how to do standalone applications using KuberDoc, or how to upsell applications through cPanel, or you can translate it to Plesk for that matter, for shared hosting. So it's mostly about how to sell applications using this new and exciting Docker platform, and why is it so much better than what we did before. Okay, what is the advantage of using Ceph for KuberDoc instead of just using XFS local file system? Well, it's fairly simple. If one of the nodes goes down and you're using Ceph, all those customers will be automatically migrated on a different node. Their applications will just restart, and most of them won't even notice that something happened. If it's a local file system and the node crashed, you have to wait until that node comes back before those applications will be accessible again. So it's the same like the difference for VPS. If your data is stored on local storage, you will not be able to bring that VPS up until that local machine, until that server is back up.